No one saw it coming. Not the fans, not the press, and definitely not the content creators suddenly swept into a legal nightmare they never asked to be part of. It all started with a single message. TikTok creator Nadia Grease, known for her thoughtful reviews on BookTok, posted a now viral video discussing It Ends With Us. But instead of praising the movie's messaging, she pointed out something a little off: the marketing, the tone. Blake Lively promoting hair care and cocktails while starring in a film about domestic abuse. It didn't sit right. Nadia wasn't cruel. She wasn't trying to start drama. In fact, she praised both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. She was neutral, fair, respectful, and yet someone reached out. An anonymous message landed in her inbox with a chilling warning. Take the video down. Allegations are about to come out. Blake is a victim. Don't hurt someone who's been through trauma. At first it sounded like concern, but looking closer, it reeked of something else: start manipulation. Spin a subtle threat disguised as sympathy, because here's the kicker. This message was sent before any accusations had even gone public. That's when the questions started. Why would someone claim Blake was a victim before the story even broke? Why try to silence a neutral voice unless there was something to hide? It wasn't just about protecting Blake. It looked more like a pre-planned smear attempt against Justin Baldoni, quietly circulating in the background. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Other creators started getting strange DMIs. Some were asked to remove content. Others were accused of being part of a secret campaign, but none of them had been paid. None of them even knew each other. The pieces didn't fit until now, because what Nadia didn't know at the time was that her viral video had just landed, her in the middle of a brewing Hollywood war. And Team Blake was already moving behind the scenes. Asterisk, here's the wild part: Nadia wasn't even attacking Blake. She wasn't picking sides. She wasn't trashing the film. All she did was point out how strange it felt to see a movie about surviving abuse marketed like a girly summer flick. She talked about the tone, the messaging, the missed opportunity to spark a real conversation. It wasn't just Nadia noticing. Other viewers were confused, too. How could Blake Lively promote a serious role while pushing her hair care and alcohol brands on the side? The disconnect was glaring. But instead of owning the criticism, Team Blake or someone close to them responded by trying to shut it down completely. And this is where things got sketchy. Nadia's message wasn't from a verified account. It wasn't signed. Just a vague warning from someone who said, Blake is innocent. Allegations will come out. You wouldn't want to speak negatively about a victim. But a victim of what? Nothing had happened publicly yet. This message was all hypothetical. It's almost like someone knew what narrative was about to be pushed and wanted to clear the runway early. Now here's where it gets darker. Nadia didn't take the video down. She stood by her words, and the video exploded, racking up over 4 million views. Not because it was dramatic, but because it hit a nerve. People were tired of fake PR fluff. They wanted honesty, authenticity. Instead, they got damage control. And for Blake's team, the PR problem was only just beginning, because trying to bury criticism, it only made people dig deeper, and what they started finding changed everything. Asterisk, what started as whispers in the DMs suddenly became something much more dangerous. On July 21st, everything changed. Blake Lively's legal team filed a subpoena to Google, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, requesting personal and financial records of 43 users, 16 YouTubers, 7 TikTok creators, and 20 Twitter accounts. And what they wanted wasn't just usernames. They demanded full names, email addresses, phone numbers, physical locations, IP addresses, recovery emails, session times, payment records, even blockchain, wallet data, all under the claim that these people might have been part of a smear campaign orchestrated by Justin Baldoni's team. One of the YouTubers on that list, Spill SESH. She found out from Google herself that her data had been requested under production request number 4. Her username was named directly in court. No warning, no consent, just ... listed. And the worst part, this wasn't a sealed document. Her name, and the names of others, were now publicly visible in the legal system. Let that sink in. Creators who had once been anonymous, who never signed up to be part of a feud, were now potentially being doxxed through a legal backdoor. Spill Sesh said it herself. I never got paid. I've never been in contact with Justin or his team. I didn't even post negatively about Blake. I'm just worried what they'll do with our information if they get it. And she's not alone. Some of the people subpoenaed were small creators with under 50 followers who posted once about the movie. One TikToker literally posted a side-by-side of Justin and Blake's press interviews and commented on how Justin took the message of the film more seriously. That was it. That's what got her dragged into a lawsuit. Another was a DV survivor who shared how much the story personally resonated with her, and yet they were treated like enemies of Blake Lively. This wasn't just a search for truth. This felt like a witch hunt. A desperate attempt to find proof of a conspiracy that wasn't there. And Blake's legal team wasn't stopping that. They were about to go after the PR agency behind Justin's marketing, hoping it would finally give them the answers they wanted. But what they found next only made things worse. When the subpoenas failed to silence creators, Blake Lively's team shifted their focus, this time to tag the PR agency believed to be working with Justin Baldoni. Their goal was clear: prove there was a secret coordination effort, that content creators, influencers, or journalists had been fed talking points or messages by Justin's team to smear Blake. Blake's lawyers didn't hold back. In legal filings, they demanded TAG hand over all emails shared with media or creators, a list of every journalist or outlet they communicated with, and details of any messaging, scripts, or strategy that mentioned Blake, Ryan Reynolds, or the lawsuit. But here's where it all started falling apart. TAG pushed back hard. They objected, calling the requests vague, irrelevant, and far too broad. They denied giving access to third parties. No emails were shared. No media campaigns were orchestrated behind Blake's back. In plain terms, they found no proof of a smear campaign. Still, under pressure, TAG did provide one thing: a list of the journalists and outlets they had spoken to since June. And it included some of the biggest names in media: TMZ, CNN, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Good Morning America, Business Insider, Daily Mail, Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, even Us Weekly and Puck. But there was a twist. Most of these outlets had published positive coverage of Blake. Many had presented her as a victim in their headlines. They hadn't attacked her, they had amplified her side, which left everyone wondering, if these were the so-called conspirators working against her, why were they on her side? And perhaps more importantly, why did Blake's team want this information to become public? Because when it did, exposed one thing very clearly: there was no army of influencers plotting her downfall, just journalists doing their job, creators sharing opinions, and a PR firm following standard procedure. Instead of proving a conspiracy, Blake's legal move only showed how little there was to uncover, and that realization set off a ripple effect, because if the smear campaign, it didn't exist, why were so many innocent people being dragged into court, and what exactly was Blake trying to protect? If Blake Lively's legal team thought exposing the TAG agency's contacts would help their case, they couldn't have been more wrong. Once that list became public, the internet pounced. Instead of finding shady content creators scheming behind the scenes, what we got was a press list, one that any publicist could have built by Googling media contacts, and most of the outlets listed. Again, they weren't attacking Blake. Many had published articles sympathetic to her, even positioning her as the victim in this legal feud. It was like watching someone hand over their own defense while insisting it was evidence of a crime. And here's where it gets even worse. The list was originally marked attorney's eyes only, meaning only Blake's legal team was supposed to see it. So why did her team push for it to go public? No one knows for sure, but what we do know is this: once it became public record, it shattered any illusion that there was a coordinated effort to destroy her. In fact, it proved the opposite. Creators, some with barely any following, were being targeted not because they said anything extreme, but because they said something, anything: a comparison, a critique, a personal story. And the more the public saw the list, the more confused they became. Why subpoena someone who made one video expressing support for the film? Why go after a DV survivor who simply compared how the stars promoted the movie? Why include people who never even criticized Blake directly? It stopped looking like legal strategy and started looking like intimidation. And as public support started to shift, the courts took notice too. One brave creator filed a motion to quash by herself, without a lawyer. She won, and in doing so, she set a precedent: you can now fight Blake Lively subpoenas anonymously. It was a small win, but a powerful one, because the more creators pushed back, the more the public realized what was really happening. This wasn't about defending Blake Lively's name. This was about controlling the narrative and silencing the people who weren't playing along. But what if this entire campaign wasn't even about Justin Baldoni at all? What if there was something much deeper Blake didn't want us to see? At this point, the question isn't just why is Blake Lively targeting creators, it's what is she trying to distract us from, because behind the legal filings, the subpoenas, and the endless deflections, something else has started to surface. Something bigger. Something that could explain the panic. And it's not about Justin Baldoni, it's about money. Sources now claim that Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's golden marketer, poured millions of dollars into Blake's brands, her hair care line, her sparkling beverage company, and her other private ventures. These were supposed to launch Blake Lively as a business mogul in her own right, but they flopped quietly, embarrassingly. Multiple insiders have whispered that none of her brands have turned a profit, not even close, and that's a problem. Not just for Blake, but for Ryan, too, because his public image, his whole empire, is built on being a marketing genius. He turned Aviation Gin and Mint Mobile into billion-dollar deals. He's the guy who never misses. But if it turns out he lost millions building Blake's failed empire, that's bad press. Really bad. So what does this have to do with It Ends With Us? Simple. According to critics, Blake used the movie's promotional tours as a disguised brand campaign. Instead of raising awareness about the movie's TV message, she pushed her products, her alcohol line, her beauty brand. Even during interviews about trauma and survival, it was tone deaf. And it didn't go unnoticed. In fact, There's one moment that viewers keep bringing up in the book. There's a scene where the character's hair is pulled, a visceral abusive moment, and in real life, Blake used that same film to promote her hair care line. That's not just a missed opportunity. That's exploitation. It was never about awareness. It was about sales. And when creators started pointing that out, not maliciously, just honestly, they were silenced. But now, that silence is cracking because if Blake's empire is falling apart behind the scenes and the press starts connecting the dots, the smear campaign allegations won't just look false, they'll look like a cover-up. And when a cover-up gets exposed, the consequences are far worse than any bad review. For weeks it felt like no one in Hollywood was going to speak up. The media was silent, PR agencies dodged the spotlight, and the only people pushing back were small creators fighting uphill battles alone. But finally, someone said what everyone else was too scared to. British actor and comedian Omid Jalili broke the silence with a viral post that sent shockwaves through the industry. He wrote, "This isn't Amber versus Johnny. This is something darker. It's not gossip. It's about free speech. This affects all of us." He wasn't defending Justin. He wasn't bashing Blake. He was calling out the tactics, the weaponized subpoenas, the legal intimidation, the chilling effect on creators. Just sharing opinions. And then he took it even further. When you demand IP addresses and PayPal receipts from hobby vloggers, you risk mugging the First Amendment in broad daylight. He didn't stop there. He pointed directly at Blake and Ryan, saying they cannot use mainstream media to control the narrative and punish social media users when the public doesn't fall for it. It was the first time someone with influence publicly challenged what Blake's team was doing. And it flipped the script because now it wasn't just about a feud. It was about freedom of speech, creator safety, and the ugly truth behind celebrity image control. Omid ended his post with a challenge. "If you want to subpoena me for saying this, go ahead, make my day." And with that, the silence was broken. And suddenly, Blake wasn't just fighting back against criticism, she was fighting a losing war for control and trying to control the story. Blake Lively may have written her own downfall. The court documents meant to expose a smear campaign ended up exposing her own team. The influencers named, not part of any conspiracy. The media contacts, mostly on her side, the public, no longer buying it, and now even the courts are pushing back. One creator's anonymous legal win cracked the entire foundation of her case. More are filing motions. More are speaking out because the truth is out there and it doesn't need a PR team to make it viral. The story that started as a soft launch for a romantic drama became a messy, public unraveling of power, ego, and manipulation. A movie about breaking cycles turned into a real-life example of what happens when a cycle of control and silence finally snaps. What Blake and her team may not have realized is that trying to silence people only made them louder. Trying to hide the truth only made it more visible. And trying to frame Justin Baldoni only made people start asking why were they trying so hard to bury him in the first place. Now, with court battles escalating and creators refusing to back down, this case is far from over. But one thing's already clear. The smear campaign didn't come from Justin's team, it came from the top. And now the internet knows out CTA viewer engagements. So what do you think? Was this just a PR disaster or something more calculated? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns on Hollywood's untold truths. And remember, when they try to silence the internet fights back.